The Titanic never sank.
What?
The Titanic never sank.
So why have I heard my entire life about the wreck of the Titanic and the one on the ocean?
All right. I have the information. So, the Titanic did not sink. This is what happened. The Titanic had a sister ship called the Olympic.
I did know that, actually. Now I remember.
So,
I did hear about that.
the Olympic went out and like ran into another ship or did something, got a bunch of damage done to it. So, and then it either wasn't insured, couldn't be insured, something about it couldn't be insured. So then, once it came back, they had the Titanic that was in perfect condition that could be insured and was insured. So they just switched the names, and then they sent the Olympic out into the ocean as the Titanic with the intention of sinking it for the insurance money. And the person that was that was part of this in cahoots to sink the Titanic. There, I'm sure you've heard the name J.P. Morgan.
Yeah.
The J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. There's a J.P. Morgan Junior and Senior, and a whole line of I think they were all financiers and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
During that time of the whole Titanic thing, J.P. Morgan wanted to start a Federal Reserve Bank. There was 3 other rich people that were against this Federal Reserve Bank. That was John Jacob Astor, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus. The Isidor Straus guy also was a co-owner of, I think, Macy's. I think is what the name of it. It was some retail store.
Is Isidor Straus and Guggenheim?
Benjamin Guggenheim.
And
John Jacob Astor.
What are these names?
Okay, so those 3 guys were all stopped J.P. Morgan somehow they wouldn't let him start this Federal Reserve Bank for whatever the reason was. So, all 3 of those guys died on the Titanic. But J.P. Morgan was supposed to be on the Titanic with them, or I should say Olympic, Titanic, whatever.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be on there with them, but during the time that the Titanic was supposed to take off, he was already on a vacation, and just a couple days before it took off, he decided to extend his current vacation and cancel his room. And it just so happened that the ship he was supposed to be on sinks with the 3 people that wouldn't let him do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Well, who would sink the ship? Would it be the captain?
I'll tell you who sunk the ship.
Does that make sense?
There was a German submarine that bombed the ship. So this was all all these people were in cahoots. The
Wait, the Germans?
a German submarine. So the reason this whole German submarine thing comes up is there was a guy that was a survivor of the Titanic that wrote a book that I think was later taken off shelves and suppressed or something, where he wrote in his book that whenever the ship started to sink, that there was multiple explosions happening before it started sinking. And then he said, and then this guy ended up in the water, or jumped in the water or whatever. And he said that under the water, you could see searchlights under the water. So they think that it was a submarine. And that would be a submarine, and it just happened to happen near an iceberg.
Why would it be? Who would take all their shelves? J.P. Morgan?
Who would what?
Who would be taking them off the shelves? The books.
What do you mean taking them off the shelves?
The books.
Oh, I don't know I don't know exactly what happened with the books. It might even still be out there, but for whatever reason, it wasn't a highly promoted book.
I mean, yeah, but could J.P. Morgan have the power to do that? He's only a business owner.
Well, the book's not the point, but the sinking of the ship is the important
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
He definitely had the pull to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's very ironic that he would just so happen to cancel his room before it sinks.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the guy, I don't remember his name, but something Hershey, the guy who invented Hershey's chocolate. He was supposed to be on the ship too, and he canceled because he was also friends with J.P. Morgan.
I mean, yeah, it seems to line up pretty well.
So, do you have any rebuttals, or or does everything just pretty much line up?
I mean, that does seem like a lot of coincidences and a very, very suspicious pattern.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And then there was even whenever I was looking into this, there was even there was a whole nother theory that it was still the same like premise of the like switching the names, and they said that the Olympic had gone out and did whatever and got damaged, and then they came back, switched the nameplates, and then the like on its way, while it was on its way, something happened about like it catches on fire in the hull or something, and then the fire weakens the hull so much that then when it does hit the iceberg, then it does collapse it or whatever. And there was even there was a picture of like I don't remember which ship the picture was supposed to be of. Oh, I remember. It was a picture of the Titanic is what they were calling it, but it was actually the Olympic, and it was in like a not like a it wasn't like hooked up to a dock. It was almost like a dry dock or something where like you could see the entire like hull of the ship.
Yeah, dry dock.
And they in the picture you could see like on the hull you could see like a giant dark circle where like something had happened. And they were saying the thread I was reading, people were saying that like that dark circle was where it caught on fire, and then that was probably also where it hit the iceberg, and then that's how it sunk. But I think I much prefer the German submarine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also like it's kind of hard to believe that like the captain of the ship would just hit an iceberg, like oops, accidentally run into it, clip it.
You planned that whenever I was taking a drink of water. So the captain's just up there, just like, I'm gonna hit this iceberg. Boom!
He's just like, I can make that.
He's like, he just gets the call. The guy's like, take it down.
Yeah.
Okay. Bam!
Your last one, complete the mission.
How did they? Have you like seen anything about how would they have hit the iceberg to begin with?
Or the captain would have to be an idiot for one to miss an iceberg.
So I mean, because okay, let's just say that none of this happened. It was really the Titanic. It wasn't weak. It was a good ship. It still doesn't make sense how you drive into an iceberg.
Yeah, like how he'd have to be like, you know, he'd have to like have seen 3 icebergs. Like he was on something, he saw 3 icebergs, and he's like, which one of those is real?
Hold on there, Tyler. So, this is the editor, and I just have to jump in and explain why the captain did his best. So, if you take a look here, the Titanic has a turning diameter of 3,880 feet. If we take that number and find the circumference, the total distance for the Titanic to make a full 360-degree turn is just under 2.5 miles. Now, all the captain needed to do was steer about 45 degrees away from the iceberg, meaning he would need at least about half a mile to do so in the best conditions. Now, the Titanic only had basic viewability, using only crow's nests, which were connected to a phone, which could be called to the captain. On that certain night, the visibility was only around 1.5 miles to 2 miles because they were on sea level. Technically, they had enough room, but it was hard to pinpoint the exact location and size of the iceberg, so the captain didn't 100% know what was the best option. And the captain also isn't just going to jerk the wheel and basically throw every passenger onto the floor or possibly losing them off the deck. So using a very moderate rate of turn for a safe 45-degree turn, they would need at least about a mile to a mile and a quarter in order to take that 45-degree turn. So the captain barely had any space for error. They also had the illusion of 3 icebergs due to the very odd horizon effect and the weather at that time. So that's why the Titanic just barely hit the iceberg. If they had just maybe an extra half mile, they would have probably made it out fine. So if that illusion, and if it was even daytime, the Titanic would still be around. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Back onto the podcast.
That iceberg, that doesn't look like an iceberg. That's probably just like some floating ice. I can hit that.
It's a mirage.
Because they had whatever that thing is that goes beep beep.
Radar.
Radar, and that doesn't that show you what's in the water, right?
Did they have radar? Radar in 1910?
12.
12? You think they had a radar in 1912?
I mean, yeah.
You weren't convinced that they had telephones on the ship, and you're now going to say they have radar?
What do you mean? That radar's old.
It was developed in like what, the 60s?
1911.
What?
A year before the Titanic.
I don't believe that. Radar.
Okay, no, look this up. Look up what type of navigation system the Titanic had. That'll tell us what we need to know.
By the way, the radar was invented in 1935.
Okay, it was a time traveler.
Mm-hmm.